The stillness of a rural Texas night was shattered at 2:14 a.m. on January 2, 2018. A voice, trembling with fear, crackled through the 911 operator's headset. "There was a man in here. I think he shot my husband. Please hurry." Sandra Garner, a 56-year-old woman battling multiple sclerosis, was hyperventilating as she described a nightmare unfolding in her own home in Maypearl, Texas. A masked intruder had shot her husband, John, execution style, while he lay sleeping in their bed. The assailant then forced Sandra at gunpoint to retrieve $18,000 from a lockbox before vanishing into the night. But what seemed like an open and shut case quickly spiraled into a labyrinth of contradictions, lies, and chilling discoveries. As Ellis County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the modest single-story home, they found a scene that would set the stage for one of the most perplexing murder investigations in Texas history. John Garner's body was still warm, lying lifeless in bed. A single bullet hole in his right temple, close-range execution, the first deputy on scene later recalled. But there were no signs of forced entry. No broken windows, no damaged doors. And Sandra, she was barefoot, trembling, repeating the same story. It was a story of a random home invasion gone horribly wrong. But the deeper investigators dug, the more the narrative began to unravel. The crime scene. From the moment Chief Boyd Norton of the Maypearl Police Department took over the investigation, troubling inconsistencies became apparent. Her timeline kept shifting. Norton later said, "At first, the intruder was there for seconds, then for minutes. She claimed he made specific threats about John ruining his life, but couldn't describe his voice." The inconsistencies didn't stop there. Sandra claimed the gunman had forced her to count to 100 before calling 911, a bizarre detail that seemed too rehearsed to be true. But as investigators began to piece together the physical evidence, more disturbing clues emerged. John Garner, an avid gun collector with 49 firearms in the home, had been killed with Sandra's personal .38 special revolver, a gift from her husband. Yet this gun was nowhere to be found. When questioned, Sandra first claimed it was in her purse, then changed her story to "maybe in my car." But a search of both locations turned up nothing. John's death was no random act of violence. The victim showed no signs of struggle. Forensic pathologist Dr. Emily Sanchez would later explain. This was an execution. The gun was pressed directly to his temple while he was likely asleep. This wasn't the work of a panicked burglar. What troubled investigators even more were the financial irregularities that emerged. Sandra claimed $18,000 had been stolen from the safe, but John's wallet, containing $327 in cash, was left untouched on the dresser. Even more strange, Sandra's diamond wedding ring and other valuable jewelry remained right where they were. What kind of burglar takes cash, but leaves valuable jewelry behind? Mused Detective Carlos Mendez. It didn't add up. Sandra's behavior after the crime was equally baffling. She waited 12 minutes after the intruder had supposedly left to call 911. When police arrived, she had already washed her hands and changed clothes, claiming her clothes were soiled from checking John's pulse. The scene was beginning to look less like a home invasion gone wrong, and more like something much darker. The digital smoking guns. While Sandra stayed with John's family, investigators turned to her electronic devices, hoping to uncover any clues about what had really happened that night. What they found was shocking. In the weeks before John's murder, Sandra's internet search history raised some serious red flags. She'd been looking up things like how to kill someone in their sleep and 16 ways to kill someone and not get caught. There were also searches for best places to shoot someone for instant death and does gunshot residue wash off. These unsettling searches painted a dark picture of what might have been on her mind in the days leading up to the crime. When confronted about these searches, Sandra insisted they were linked to suicidal thoughts. She explained to investigators, "I was depressed about my MS diagnosis. John was my caretaker. I'd never hurt him." But the evidence continued to pile up. Sandra's financial records revealed alarming details. She had $42,000 in credit card debt, a burden John knew nothing about. There were also multiple searches for life insurance payout timelines. Perhaps most damning of all was a deleted email Sandra had sent to her sister, reading, "If anything happens to John, I'll finally be free." Then, investigators uncovered another crucial piece of evidence, the missing .38 revolver. 3 days after the murder, police were granted access to Sandra's locked 2015 Ford Mustang GT. Sandra had been hesitant to allow them to search the car, but when they did, they discovered the gun wrapped in vinegar-soaked towels under the passenger seat. An attempt to destroy any DNA evidence. Ballistics tests confirmed the weapon was the one used to kill John Garner. Sandra's own son, Wes, made a stunning admission during questioning. "Mom always kept that gun under her car seat. She said it was her insurance policy." The trial and defense's counterattack. The prosecution's case against Sandra was built on 3 major points. First, motive. Sandra was set to inherit a hefty $750,000 from John's life insurance policy and the couple's paid-off home. That was a lot of money on the line. Next, they had an opportunity. There was no sign of forced entry, which made it seem like the killer knew the house well, maybe even someone who lived there. And finally, means. The murder weapon was Sandra's own gun, which had conveniently been hidden in her car. All these pieces of the puzzle painted a pretty clear picture, but Sandra's defense attorney, Tom Pappas, was determined to fight back. The police mishandled the crime scene. Pappas argued. Critical photos were deleted. The crime scene was poorly documented. He pointed out that the officers had failed to bag Sandra's hands for gunshot residue testing, fingerprint the interior of her car, or properly document the blood spatter patterns at the scene. The defense also cast suspicion on Sandra's son, Wes. He had been cut from John's will just 2 months before the murder. His alibi, which involved watching Netflix, collapsed when timestamps revealed he had been searching for how to inherit if parent dies at the time of the murder. Forensic experts testified that the Google searches could have come from Wes's phone, casting doubt on his innocence. And then came the bombshell. The jailhouse informant. Ray Dupree, a convicted felon, claimed that Sandra had confessed to the murder. However, Pappas exposed Dupree's lies. It was revealed that Dupree had received sentence reductions in exchange for false testimony in the past. Furthermore, guards testified that Sandra and Dupree had never been in the same cell block, further discrediting his claims. Verdict and aftermath. The trial concluded in a dramatic fashion. After just 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a shocking not guilty verdict. The courtroom erupted. Sandra collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably at the defense table. John's father screamed in outrage, accusing the jury of being bought off. She bought the jury. He yelled before being escorted out. Wes, his face cold and unreadable, stormed out of the courtroom, never once looking at his mother. In the aftermath, Sandra returned to the murder house, where she now runs an Etsy store. Wes, too, disappeared, changing his name and moving to Oregon, away from the shadow of his past. Present day, Sandra still lives in the house where John was killed. The walls that once echoed with the laughter of a happy couple now hold the weight of a tragedy that has never been fully explained. Wes, meanwhile, has reinvented himself, leaving behind the life he once knew. But even as time passes, the unanswered questions continue to linger, haunting both the town of Maypearl and those who were closest to the tragedy. Why did Sandra's 911 call show no background noise, despite her claims of screaming? Who accessed John's laptop at 1:47 a.m., just minutes before his death? And what of the fresh tire tracks found behind the barn? Tracks that matched no known vehicles. As Chief Norton admitted in a 2022 interview, "This case keeps me awake at night. We'll never know what really happened in that bedroom." Despite Sandra's acquittal, the mystery of John Garner's death remains unsolved. The truth, it seems, may never come to light. Truth Never Dies reads the epitaph on the roadside memorial, erected by John's family, a final tribute to a man whose life was taken in the dead of night. And to this day, the questions surrounding his death continue to haunt the sleepy town of Maypearl, Texas.